Welcome to Hey Las Vegas. I'm your host, Bror Fredrik, the voice of Las Vegas, bringing you all the latest Las Vegas news, information, and the occasional what the actual F. And boy, do I got a WTF for you today. Man sues Las Vegas dancer for $38 million. We're going to drive around Las Vegas a little bit. I'll tell you what's going on. Then we'll head back to the studio. I'll give you my opinion, maybe some hot takes, and I want to hear yours too. And we'll get into it right after this. So here's what went down. Good old Fred from Arkansas was in the middle of a divorce back in June of 2014. He was in Vegas and he decided to go to a gentleman's club where he met Melanie, what's her name? Melanie Sterling. I want to call her Amber, but she is Melanie, a dancer at the club. She gave him some private dances, and according to Fred, he is far wealthier than any of her other patrons, wealthy enough to permanently change her life. Yeah, I bet. So, what happened was they got into this relationship, they exchanged numbers, and Fred says, well, let's call him Mr. Brunner, Brunner, that her intent was to defraud him from the get-go, and he called it being hoodwinked. Now, he was definitely in the middle of a divorce, so he wanted companionship, possibly some emotional support while he went through these divorce proceedings. And that's where Miss or Mrs. Sterling comes into play. She would text him, she would send him romantic cards and letters, and they started to go on vacations inside the country, outside of the country, with our man Fred paying, of course, the cost to be the boss. So he paid for everything. Obviously, this dude has money. Now, this relationship went on for 10 years. Remember, this is back in June of 2014. So this is 10 years they've been doing this. And Sterling, let's call her Sterling, the AKA dancer, she made over 100 requests from this guy. That averaged 10 a year, almost once a month, let's say, for various forms of financial support. Basically, she was hosing him for money. Some of that money went to pay for a house for her, a $72,000 home in Las Vegas. Now, this was with the intent that once his divorce was settled, he'd eventually move in with her and all this other type of stuff. And they agreed to sell the house and split the proceeds if they ever ended their relationship, according to the lawsuit. Now, what happened was the home was never placed in either of their names because the dancer was concerned that if anything happened with Fred's children would fight the claim of the ownership and all this other type of stuff. Again, according to the lawsuit. Now, what also happened was, again, according to the allegations of this lawsuit, that she transferred the home to a trust in her name. I'm not sure exactly. It must have been a very loosely put together deal to make it more difficult for his family to recover the property, according to this lawsuit, which places Sterling, the dancer, in breach of contract that they made earlier and failed to sell the home. So evidently they split up and split the proceeds. The claim goes on to say that the dancer, Sterling, also was funneling money to 20 other individuals, which Fred, the plaintiff, believes to have participated in this alleged scheme, and he filed the lawsuit. Now, how did they know about the 20 other people that were involved when 4 John Does are named? I don't know. I'm sure if this guy had the money to spend on her, which is to the tune of $35 million over 10 years, so he spent $3.5 million on average per year on this Las Vegas dancer, Frickin' yikes. So, yeah, I guess he didn't check where it was going, but at the same time, I'm sure he was able to hire some private investigators to see what's what and who she was involved with. And on top of this, he also thought and or felt that they were exclusive. Yeah, exclusive. That it was just him and her, and she wasn't dating some other dudes and all this other type of stuff. So that's the story. Let's head on over to the studio and we will talk about it, and I'll give you my take on it. And again, I want to hear yours too. Okay, so we're back in the studio. Again, let me know your opinion on this before I give you mine, but I got a couple of opinions on this. Now, I can hear what people are saying out there. They're probably saying, well, if he was dumb enough to do that, he deserves what he was going to get. And, you know, if you're stupid enough to do that, then tough on him. Too bad. He had it coming. If he's that dumb, blah, blah, blah. I hear a few of you saying that out there. However, isn't that the equivalent of shaming a woman for how she dressed during an event? Isn't that the equivalent of shaming a female for an unfavorable outcome in the similar scenario? So I would caution you to not judge this guy, because it is a form of shaming. He was a dude, he was lonely, and we hear about these romance scams all the time. Everyone falls prey to them, from the poor to the wealthy. And even in our day-to-day relationships, you swipe, well, I don't swipe on Tinder, but you're swiping on Tinder and doing all that other stuff. You meet someone at the local Walmart or whatever the case. Shut up, watch. At the local Walmart or whatever the heck you meet people these days. And they might not have the best of intentions. They might be after your money. You don't know, so you can't say. So let's just put the judgmental aspect of this aside for a second. I would, however, caution individuals not to fall in love or get into relationships with women in that profession. She was a professional, what they call dancer. We all know what we're talking about. It involves poles and clubs and rhyme spearmint type things, and you know what I'm saying, right? It's not the place to go looking for love. So treat this as a cautionary tale, let's say. Let's not judge the individual lest we be judged, but don't fall for the same guiles. A pretty face, a nice body, all this other type of stuff. A long distance relationship and sending money in return for affection or anything else. Now, what I can say is I know for a fact that there are a lot of kept women here in Las Vegas. I almost, again with the watch, I almost went into the Veer Towers when they were very, very affordable when I first came to town. I came to find out that there are a ton of kept women. By kept, I mean pay for an apartment, pay for a condominium, pay for a house, whatever. You get to live there. It's still in my name, supposedly. Well, not my name. And when I come to town, when I come in for a convention, when I'm able to sneak away from either work, business, my wife, or my life, you're exclusively for me. I expect you to be there for me. We're going to have a great time. And in exchange, you get to live in this place. I'll pay the bills, pay the electric, possibly a car, whatever the case may be. But that is very common, and I saw a lot of that at the Veer, going up and down the elevators and having conversations. But not just there, all over town that takes place. Some men would presume exclusivity, some would not. They'd just be like, make yourself available for me on, June 25th, whatever the case may be. And others, they want the exclusivity if they're going to pay the cost to be the boss. It is what it is. It's a transactional relationship. Now, you can say what this guy was attempting to do was transactional. It didn't say whether they were knocking boots or the extent of their relationship, but I'm assuming there was some intimacy involved. They were traveling the world, and how he spent $3.5 million on her. what is that, private jets and caviar and rented Bugattis. I don't know how that went down. But again, we don't want to shame this individual because shit happens. Will he get a dime out of her? I doubt it. If he spent the money, now what he gave her, that's a different story. Maybe he has a record of that. But what was the exchange? Was it a loan? Was it a gift? It's going to be extraordinarily hard to prove. The intent behind it, I intended to screw you out of money from the get-go. Perhaps that could be, but you can't get blood from a stone either way. It's going to be very, very difficult, especially these John Does who she passed on. But if he was spending $3.5+ million a year, that money's gone. That was what? Restaurants, hotels, car rentals, flights. He's not going to recover that, but that's why it is punitive damages, for his broken heart. So, what lessons have we learned from this? Don't fall in love with dancers that you meet coming to Vegas. A lot of them are predatory. I would say the same about a lot of different, categories of women here in town. Don't be fooled. If it turns out you have a great time that night, good for you. I wouldn't invite, if I were you fellas, I wouldn't invite any of them up to the room. You never know what's going to happen. You might be missing a kidney or a Rolex or whatever the case may be. Be careful. This is a massive cautionary tale. But this is a 10-year in the making story. I definitely feel for the guy, but I don't think he's going to recover. It's a case of lesson learned. But we'll see. When something happens, I'll give you an update. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of Hey Las Vegas. And stay tuned for more. And on that note, Bror Fredrik out.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.